Welcome to the Real People, Real Business Show. My name is Stephanie Hayes, and I'm a business strategist who helps mature entrepreneurs design their wealthy exits. Whether that means building an asset-based business model for an eventual sale or simply taking yourself out of your business while enjoying its continued growth. I love to speak with like-minded entrepreneurs to share their real stories and the gritty details on how they have navigated their own way through. On this show, you won't hear about the glamorized entrepreneurship journeys that you can see online. You won't be told how to make six figures in 6 weeks. Instead, you can expect to hear real, vulnerable, and inspiring stories that you can relate to that have helped create the foundation for each of our guests' businesses. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Vanessa Gabriel. Vanessa is the CEO and co-founder of Drop Delivery, the cannabis industry's only all-in-one delivery technology solution for delivery companies and retailers. A 30-year-old self-described serial entrepreneur, Vanessa previously co-founded Greenlight Technologies, a leading order ahead in digital loyalty software in the cannabis industry, which was acquired in 2018. She's been recognized by Forbes Next 1000, Marijuana Venture 40 Under 40, and is a part of the Rolling Stone Culture Council. Welcome to the show, Vanessa, and thanks so much for taking the time to share your story today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here. So grateful for this opportunity to be able to, share my story.
I'm so humbled by your list of accolades and all the things that you've done. So, if you're willing to, I would love for you to share your story and tell us how you kind of got to where you are right now.
Yeah. So growing up, I was around business a lot. My dad was a serial entrepreneur and owned literally a plethora of different businesses, from like a flooring company to commercial development. He wanted to start his own fashion brand at one point. And so business was always a talk around the dinner table. And even at one point, I was helping him write payroll checks after dinner at the table. And so I knew I wanted to get into business. I just had no idea what that would look like for myself. So when I went to college, decided to study business, and I loved fashion and shopping at the time. But I was on a college student budget. And so I came across flash sale deal sites like Gilt Group, Beyond the Rack, Hot Look. That was really big back in 2010, 2011. And I loved the business model, but it still just wasn't my style. And so I was like, why don't I do this for college students? That was kind of my first business that I started out of my dorm. And so I went back home the summer after my freshman year and just try to get my friends to join my team. I had a friend in high school that did photography, and I was like, well, I need someone to help me take pictures. And so, and funny enough, that's my CTO today, Mark Lopez. We went to high school together, and he was there at my first business. And then my younger sister, Jade, she was, I think, 15 at the time, 14, wanted to become an intern. And so, we let her help out with whatever she could. And she's our CPO today at Drop. That was our kind of first jump into business. And I mean, it was amazing. I did a little friends and family fundraising round. And we got a warehouse. We built out a photo studio. We were going to fashion trade shows, all at like 19, 20. Had no idea what we were doing. And I think to our advantage, we were so naive and so brave, and we're not scared to show up at these fashion trade shows and talk to brands and just be like, this is our website. Do you want to be on it? We'd love to buy some inventory. It was just so fun, but we learned very quickly that a capital intensive business model, like holding, actual inventory, is really hard to sustain and to scale. And we weren't moving product as fast as we, would have hoped. And so eventually the business fizzled out. And after that, it was kind of back to the drawing board for us. And for me, we were kind of dabbling into fashion editorial media and shoppable media at the time, like before, Instagram was really that big. We were working with influencers off a website called lookbook.nu, where like all these back then influencers were just posting their looks. And we were like, okay, this could be something that we can go into, is shoppable media. And we're getting away from, the physical goods side of it. And so me and my sister and my whole family, actually, we moved to New York City. And I think I was like maybe 22 and my sister was 17. And we tried to launch this shoppable media company. And I mean, I was just so young, brand new to the city. We were from a really small town in Northern California. And I mean, life just like got the best of me. I was like just trying to make a living in the concrete jungle of New York. And so it never really got off the ground. And I was like, back at square one of like, what am I supposed to do? How am I even supposed to like afford to live? And so honestly, I just got like really random jobs. I became a personal assistant to a handbag designer. I was a receptionist at a PR firm. I was helping someone do Amazon FBA by selling products. And then eventually I landed a solid gig as an e-commerce marketing manager for a Dutch beauty brand. And I was like, okay, I have something like solid. I get to travel to Europe for work. But I was actually really unhappy. I was in a basement working, and then I also lived in a basement in New York City. So I was like in a basement like 24 hours of the day practically, and definitely not good for your mental health. And yeah, I just always knew I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship somehow, some way. And during that time, Mark and Jade had been working on a few other businesses and projects in like the vape space. And so Mark had moved to LA, was at a local dispensary, and was like, this is taking forever. I have to wait in a really long line. I already know what I want. Why can't I just use an app to place my order for pickup and skip the line, just like you can do with food? And so they're like, we have this idea to create an app that does exactly that. And so I kind of just took the plunge and quit my job in New York and moved to LA and decided to join them. And that's how we got our start in cannabis with Greenlight. Yeah, which was an app where you could find local dispensaries in your area, place your order for pickup if you already know what you want, skip the line when you arrive, and then earn digital loyalty points and rewards at the same time for your purchases. And so, yeah, that's kind of my, weird path to cannabis. And then, yeah, that kind of quickly took off. We launched Greenlight back in 2017, and right around when recreational use was being legalized here in California. And it quickly took off, which was amazing. And yeah, as you had said, we got acquired shortly after. And for us, we just love building technology. And so we knew we wanted to continue building something else after the acquisition. And so kind of decided to go to the opposite side of the spectrum of the consumer experience and focus on delivery. We knew that that was going to be kind of the next big thing. And this was back in like 2019, 2018, like pre-pandemic. And so, yeah, that kind of led us to drop. And what we had noticed was that a lot of business owners had a fragmented software stack. And so they were using a hodgepodge of all these different software platforms that weren't connected, that were really expensive, and were honestly making their lives harder instead of, really helping them optimize their day-to-day business activities and not really helping them scale and make more money. And so that's when we decided to kind of go for this big idea of building Drop, which is an all-in-one delivery management platform that encompasses and provides POS and inventory tracking, regulation reporting, SMS marketing, e-commerce, last mile logistics, and digital loyalty and rewards, all in one platform. And so, yeah, it's pretty much Cliff Notes version.
I mean, that's a lot in a small period of time. And where are you at right now? So you've launched the product.
Yeah. So we launched it in January of 2020. So we were building out in 2019. So like I said, all pre-pandemic. We had done a beta in Q4 of 2019 with 10 clients, offered it for free. And we're just like, please use the product. We just want to monitor how you're using it, seeing if it works, what do you like about it, what you don't like. And then we were going to try and convert them come January 2020 to being paying clients. And that was kind of our first big test of like, do we have something actually real and tangible on our hands that people are actually willing to pay for? And we were 100% successful in converting those beta clients. And so we were like, okay, we think we have something. And yeah, decided to launch it in January of 2020. Yeah, right before the pandemic hit. And I mean, I think what was, I guess, in silver lining of all the craziness that kind of happened in 2020 was that, delivery was kind of the lifeline, not just for cannabis, but for, many industries. And so I think it was an amazing catalyst for the cannabis industry too, because states and regulators and regulations that prior did not allow cannabis delivery. Now they did, because cannabis was deemed essential. And so I think it really opened the door for cannabis delivery, but I feel like we're definitely still in its infancy stages for sure. There's still some states that don't offer it, that are barely having the conversation now. But yeah, we have clients in 7 states and 3 Canadian territories. And yeah, just happy to see another year of business for sure going into 2023.
And one of the tricky things about working in the cannabis industry is that there are as many different regulations in as many different states as, it just adds this other element to trying to build and plan your business. I know that when we were building ours, we were just starting in California and then also offering up in Canada. And we had to do almost a completely different business to be able to offer the product in Canada versus in California. And then, as you start looking at other states, Denver was something different, and, Oregon was something different, and Washington State was something different. So how have you navigated building a business with all those differing requirements?
Yeah, definitely. So first off, we focused on California. That's where a majority of our clients are based. And we haven't done much marketing, to be honest, just because we wanted to really focus on the product. And so any referrals or any organic leads that we were getting, we obviously had to weigh like, okay, is this worth it? Okay, we've gotten interest from 5 leads in X state. Maybe it is something that we should look into offering our software for them. And it's, yes, there is a laundry list usually of, the regulations of each state. And it doesn't differ too much, which I guess is nice. You know, it's either like obviously the age requirements could sometimes be different, or the daily purchase limits, and so taxes obviously. So we have kind of the foundation built in. It's just about tweaking those things that are very specific to that state, or like that are variable from state to state. But yeah, it's obviously just about making sure you're on top of those regulations, and then as they're changing and progressing and evolving too, and staying up to date with whatever changes too. So like I said, we're not in a ton of states yet, so it is easy to manage, and hopefully eventually we can have like our own compliance team that really just focuses on that. But we're a pretty small team now, so we like to have monthly meetings just about like, okay, what's changing in the states that we're in, what are we kind of hearing, what rumblings are in other states. Like, for example, New York just announced a few days ago that they're going to be offering delivery prior to even opening dispensaries, and that the dispensary license holders can offer delivery in the meantime until their store is set up. So that was just like announced, and that definitely changes the course of our sales strategy in the new year. And like you were saying, like it's kind of ever changing. And so yeah, this is definitely an industry that is not boring. That's for sure.
It's not at all,
Yeah.
no. And so you got started pretty early as an entrepreneur, and you
Yeah.
were, trying out a lot of different business models, a lot of different ideas.
Yeah.
And as you said, not all of them were successful,
No.
but you kept going. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that there's a nugget in there that's really, really important.
Yeah, the first one I thought was like the home run. I mean, I think every business that anybody starts, everybody kind of thinks it's the home run. And I don't think people should let go of that, even if it's not, because it's about the journey and it's about the lessons. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through all of that and maybe one didn't work out. And so I do like to look at it that way. And I also like to look at it as like every no leads you to the right yes. So heard a lot of no's in my life, and but it always kind of led me on the right path, in the right direction, and the right journey that was meant for me. And I know it's sometimes hard to thinking like when you really want something to work out, or yeah, something to really go your way, but it doesn't, and having to realize like it's okay. There's a bigger purpose, a bigger plan for me, and I'm on the right path, and I'm getting to the journey that's like, meant for me. Um, and so, yeah, I guess it's always kind of been and stuck in my mind. And too, seeing my dad, I mean, my dad's had many failed businesses. I can't even count how many. And he kind of just kept going and just kept. And so I was really lucky, I guess, to have um, and seeing that in my environment and in my upbringing, and to kind of have that resilience as an entrepreneur. That's something that I think we all face, is having to be resilient in the face of really tough situations, when your business doesn't work out, when you have to close it down, when that's not what you want or expected when you first start a business. But yeah, and like there's so much to learn in the journey, whether it works out or not.
I
um
think I think that's the critical mindset, is that
yeah.
there's a difference between people who are kind of born entrepreneurs and people who may end up in there by some other fate. And I
Yeah.
think that's I was having this conversation yesterday with another guest, and she said the thing that distinguishes entrepreneurs is the tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty. And I think one of the things that I've talked about with my clients a lot is that um, we have to look at failure differently. And it sounds like motherhood and apple pie to say there's no such thing as failure, but
Hmm.
in my perspective, it's really just kind of good information, right? Like, you're going to try something, you're going to invest in something, and you may not get the outcome that you wanted, but now you know more.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
it's
it's,
so much
it's just trial and
learning.
like, yeah, it's such trial and error. And I think, like, I would suspect what you would tell me is that each try became a little bit closer to right, and
Yeah.
to success. And now here you are. So
Yeah.
you sold a business, and now you started another one.
Yeah, exactly. And if, like I said, if I'd worked out in one of the other ones, like I said, I wouldn't be here today, or I wouldn't
Mhm.
have maybe sold the company, or I wouldn't, yeah, be building Drop. So, yeah, it all led me here. And yeah, I wouldn't know what my life would look like. And, would I be happier? Would I be, or not, And I think, yeah, that's all part of the journey. And I'm really grateful for all the experiences that led me here. And yeah, and it's being an entrepreneur, like I said, I guess having my parents be them, it has offered me um, a different perspective, because it's kind of what I grew up knowing. But I also have another set of parents that are very successful in corporate and love what they do. And so I've always known that that's also a possibility. So I grew up having both. And so, and I dabbled in both. I was an entrepreneur for a little bit, and then I got a corporate job, and then I kind of came back. And who's not to say, that someone's journey can't look like that and still be deemed, successful at the end of the day. Um, and so, yeah.
So tell me about the sale of Greenlight. Like, you say that it happened pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with women who want to build their businesses for the purpose of exits.
Mhm.
And we're not talking like, oh, I want to sell my business now. It's more like, well, I think this could be something I do in 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So did you have the intention of selling? Did it come up like as an opportunity?
Yeah, it definitely came up as an opportunity, especially just from and like our current investors at the time and their kind of connections and things. And so we initially just went in like, let's build this. We know it could be something really big and great and impactful for consumers, especially just the time that we launched it with rec use in California. And so it really wasn't planned. But so when it came about, we were like, this is an amazing opportunity that kind of just fell in our laps. And um, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue building this, or do we want to build something new? And so for us, we are like a technology company at our core, and we just love building technology in general. And so we were like, let's, let them acquire the company, we're not going to stay on too long after, just oversee the transition, and then do something new. And so with Drop too, I mean, we would love an exit. Hopefully planning for an exit in the next few years, and we have over 1,900 shareholders across the US from crowdfunding. And so with Drop in mind from the beginning, we were like, we want to build it and scale it to be a successful business that can have a successful exit. But I mean, that one was Greenlight, I feel like, was just like a whirlwind of an opportunity that we kind of just took advantage of at the time. And so I think we were pretty lucky that it happened the way that it did and how quickly it happened. Because like I said, we kind of weren't planning for it, but for Drop, we are planning for it now.
So this is super interesting to me, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about if this is an intentional business model, an intentional sort of future for the business. What are you doing differently in the way that you're designing the business to facilitate that that sort of capability or that asset growth?
So especially too in the cannabis space, no one built what we have built because it is a massive platform. It's basically like building 5 companies in one. And so when thinking about the future of the company and a future exit, we would love to be acquired by, whether it's like a bigger POS or even just a bigger company, that instead of having to acquire 5 little companies that do what we do, they can just acquire one that does everything all in one. And so that's what we're building for, and really owning that and being great at it. And that's really my vision for it, is that someone who doesn't want to build out what we've built, because one, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money and resources, will just hopefully look at us and be like, they've built out everything, they've proven it, it works. A bunch of clients are using it all across the US. This might be something good to add to our existing offerings.
And has that, if you think back on when you were building Greenlight, do you think some of the decisions you're making now and the directions you're choosing now are different based on understanding that this is being prepared as a sale?
Yeah, definitely, because that with Greenlight, it was just like, we know it can make an impact in not only for consumers and for business owners, but it was more of like this fun idea, like kind of solving, our own problem. And it was like wherever the wind kind of took us, we went. And we were just really excited to just seeing, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people using the platform. We had never experienced that before. We've had many projects that we've built, but we've never, none had ever reached that level that they did with Greenlight. And so we were just really excited to just be building something that people could be using. And then, I think with Drop, much more purposeful and intentional with how things are built. And especially just because it's such a big platform, like Greenlight essentially was like one piece basically of what Drop essentially is. And so having to build out all these different platforms and managing such a big platform, being intentional with everything to how everything's documented, how we build things out, how things are managed, just because preparing for that day that we do have to present all of that. And so with Greenlight, it was just like flying by the seat of our pants, just like building stuff. And then, we were just lucky, I said, to have that opportunity for an acquisition, and it all worked out. But I think with Drop, from the very beginning, making sure, like from the get-go, everything is pretty organized and clean and managed well, for sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about your team. You have basically stayed with the same team all the way through, and that's quite unique. And so tell me a little bit about that. Where's the synergy? Do you think that this and further ventures is going to be the same team again and again and again? And what do you account for? How do you account for the synergy that you do have?
Yeah, I think, we're like a family. And yeah, like Mark's like my brother, and obviously working with my sister has been amazing. And I think we really understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and the value that we each offer, and don't undermine that, and can acknowledge that, in this type of setting, all being co-founders and all being basically self-taught too. Mark started off as a photographer 10 years ago and then made his way into tech. And Jade became a self-taught designer, had no formal education around that. And she did that, or started dabbling into design, because she was managing a designer for a project she was working on, and was like, I think I might be able to do this better than this person that I'm working with, and just pushed herself. And so, yeah. And then even for me too, just joining back into their dynamic, I hadn't been part of it for, a few years. They had worked on a few projects of their own. So I had to really ask myself as well, like, is this something I really want? I had went and I deviated from the entrepreneurship route, and I was like, I had to really ask myself those questions, like, this is risky. Entrepreneurship is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed it's going to be successful. And so, yeah. And just, yeah. And being like really respectful of each other. Even though we're a family, I guess sometimes like the lines blur a little bit, and our dynamics are much more, I think, comfortable than like in a very rigid like corporate setting. And so, yeah, but it really works for us. And like I said, I think just understanding how each person fits in, what each person offers and what their value is, and also respecting if people want to evolve and change and their roles change, or they want to explore different things. And so, because that's what got us here too. And so, yeah. And then I think, as far as us sticking together, I mean, it was a no-brainer for us to stick together after Greenlight, just after that success. And yeah, I do see us, but also like each one of us has like kind of passion projects too in other areas, that we're all supportive of as well. And so I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for us. But as of right now, yeah, I don't see it changing.
That's amazing. And I think that, one of the things that you learn when you spend a lot of time working with startups and mentoring entrepreneurs is that the ideas come and go, but the team and the people is really what you're investing in. And I think with that longevity, you have a massive advantage wherever you plan to go and whatever you plan to start up. And so I'm going to assume that this has just been a super easy road for you with no problems along the way, right?
No, I wish.
Tell me a little bit about where you like, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned? Like, what are the things you kind of wish that you had known at the beginning?
Yeah, we really focused on like no partnerships in the beginning, because we were like, we're just going to focus on just our technology. And I think that could have changed our course a little bit, because now we're playing catch up. And so we're like, now we've started to focus on partnerships, and maybe, yeah, that could have maybe made a difference in the very beginning for us to be able to have, partnerships and integrations, and really relying too on the strength of like their own marketing, because we haven't really done any. But when you partner with a bigger company, and they're pushing it to their clients, or and you can kind of piggyback off of that. So that's something that was kind of a hard lesson to learn, because if competitors have all these partnerships and stuff, and then like a potential client comes up to us and they're like, oh, well, they have XYZ. And we're like, okay, well, we don't have that. If that's really what you want, then, you can go there. So yeah, that's one thing. what else? Two, I think we've been, yeah, just really focused on listening to our client feedback. And that's one thing in the beginning that we were like, this what makes us different. We can move a lot quicker than all these other companies on client feedback. But it has been a learning curve to figure out, what is really important for the client. Can all the clients use it? Am I going to lose a client if I don't do this for them? And so really navigating that has been, yeah, a huge learning too. Because initially we were like, okay, we'll do everything for everybody. And then, being stretched super thin, and then being like, we built something out, but nobody's using it. And we were like, oh my gosh, we just spent all this time, all this money. So yeah, really getting down to, I guess, the cost analysis of what is going to be valuable for us to build on, while still keeping our clients happy, while still being able to provide value with the platform, and yeah, keep evolving it in a way that suits them.
And I think what strikes me is that you're very focused and interested on what the needs are of the client, as opposed to, what you would really want. And I think that, you started out in the fashion industry and it seemed, very passionate, but as soon as you noticed that there was an opportunity inside cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
you made the move, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much opportunity for technology to really modernize the experience, not only for cannabis consumers, but for business owners as well. In many ways, we're very behind in the industry. I mean, like I said, like delivery is not even a normal thing or even offered in some states where cannabis is legalized. And it's like, I can literally get anything delivered pretty much at any time. Through an app. And so for cannabis to not be there, so we just want to bridge that gap and really bring technology to, yeah, modernize that experience. And I think with the pandemic, it really showed that cannabis delivery is an option that's convenient, it's safe, and it's reliable. So if people didn't, think of delivery as an option before, hopefully they do now. And even if they still like to go in store, at least they know that they have it as an option and that it's normalized and it's just like, any other normal delivery. So
Do you find yourself up against any sort of resistance or any sort of, extra challenges in the industry or in the business world in general because you're
yeah.
servicing cannabis?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, cannabis businesses in general struggle with banking. I mean, we see that too, especially with some clients, and having to be cash-based business, most of them having to be a cash-based business. So that's really tough. And even too with our second round of crowdfunding, our first one was successful back in the summer of 2020. We raised $1 million and it was amazing. And we're in it now, a second raise now to raise additional funding. And one thing that we did come across was that the escrow company that the crowdfunding platform that we're working with partners with didn't want to offer us an agreement because we're cannabis. And so that, kind of changed things for us because we had to adjust the security type that we were offering. We couldn't offer the same one as we did during our first round of funding through crowdfunding. And so that, just like things like that come up just because, yeah, they're like, oh, sorry, you're in cannabis. We don't partner with cannabis companies, or we don't work with cannabis companies. And it's tough because I'm a technology company. I don't touch the plant. I'm literally just software. So I'm a tech company at heart, just offering, software in the cannabis space. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely experienced stuff like that. And two, I mean, even after selling a company and going out to fundraise, definitely challenges there. Everybody's like, On paper, we had kind of everything I think would make us successful in the traditional fundraising um, space. We have a successful team with that has great synergy. We had a previous acquisition, and we've already built out the product. We're showing revenue, but it just like never worked out for us traditional wise, and not really sure why. But yeah, and like never really gone into the details of why. And so I think that kind of led us into crowdfunding as a viable option. And um, it was really amazing to see that just, normal people, if they believed in what we were building and our vision, could be a part of it and had the opportunity to be a part of it. And so it really was a no brainer for us to do a second round of crowdfunding. Um,
And I think that's a trend I'm seeing. I'm working with a VC on building up another part of their business for bootstrap founders. And I think the finance world is becoming focused on making financing much more accessible to startups, to founders, with revenue-based financing and with, microfinancing, and being open to some of these smaller rounds. And so it's really encouraging to see that there's more options available now to startups than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I have a question that I ask everybody in this on this show that I would love to hear your perspective on. We talk a lot about what's real in business, and what's different about some of the big stories that we see out there. So what's the biggest thing for you that's different between what we hear out there in the business world and the online business world, and what's real in business, and what's real about running a business?
Yeah, I think that even to like, not, I mean, a lot out of the pandemic, I think showed a lot with business. And obviously, business is struggling and being really vulnerable and honest about the state of their business. But yeah, I mean, what keeps me up at night sometimes is like, okay, we need to pay our bills, and I employ people, and I like those are the things that keep me up at night. And it's hard. So, sometimes, and have to like live that. And, even to when I get together with friends, like we all have different pressures from our job, and those are just my pressures that I feel. And sometimes I don't feel comfortable sharing that because I'm not sure if anyone can even relate. Um, and so I think, yeah, just even to getting a good support system around you that you can share and be vulnerable about those things, because can be very isolating, very, very isolating, to be an entrepreneur and to feel like I'm the only one going through this when chances are you're probably not. And I think that's maybe a little bit of the shame too that comes around, being an entrepreneur, is all the hard times that you have, like the really low times. A lot of people only see like all the really good times and stuff. And so, but that there are like very real things that we deal with. Like I said, I have to pay bills. I have to continue employing people. I have to, really grateful to see another year of business, and how can I continue to do that year after year. And so, yeah, I think that stuff's always on my mind. And it's, yeah, not all like rainbows and butterflies. And but
Not at all.
yeah, but that's part of the journey, and that's like what makes the journey. And I think too, all of that has taught me to really enjoy the wins that you do have, and it makes the wins feel that much sweeter, is because as an entrepreneur, you can get into such the day to day of things, and literally it's just like time goes by so quickly, and then you're like, oh my gosh, another year has gone by. And so, yeah, that's something that I'm really trying to focus on, is like really enjoying the wins that we have as a company, big or small, and really being present for it, because then the next day it could be a really big low. Who knows? Yeah.
It's so true. And I think that I know a lot of entrepreneurs, like we're just so heads down, right? And we're just so heads down with the next thing, the next thing. And that fear really can drive you, especially when you've started to take on people and started to take on a team.
Yeah.
And sometimes we sit back and we look back, and 2 years ago, where were we? And that perspective is really, really critical, because most of the things that you wanted to achieve, you've probably done already, but we never take the time to just like track that, right? So I
Yeah.
really love that. I love that perspective. So we're coming up on time, and I'm really grateful for this conversation. Can you tell our listeners how they can find you?
Yeah, you can find us at jobdelivery.com. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Vanessa Gabriel is my name. Give us a follow on LinkedIn as well. You can check out our crowdfunding raise at republic.com. And yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share today.
Awesome. It's been a real pleasure. And that's a wrap. I'm so happy we had the opportunity to chat with Vanessa today to hear more about how her business came to be, her experiences along the way, and what the future of the business entails. And thank you for tuning into this episode of the Real People, Real Business Show, where we get the real entrepreneurial stories and journeys that you can relate to. Show notes, resources, and links from this episode are available on my website and social media platforms. If you've enjoyed today's content, I'd love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on to help us share these genuine stories with an even bigger audience. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.